The ship's horn gave a low, mournful blast at 4:17 a.m. on Christmas morning, echoing across the dark harbour like some kind of ironic holiday carol. I stood on the deck of the cruise liner, my fingers wrapped around a steaming mug of hot cocoa laced with just a hint of rum, watching the lights of Miami flicker and fade behind us as we slipped out toward the open sea. The air was warm, salty, wrapping around me like an old friend's hug, nothing like the biting cold I'd left behind in Ohio. My boarding pass was tucked into the pocket of my linen-wrap dress, the one I'd bought on a whim last summer and never worn because Ethan always said it was too beachy for our family get-togethers. Behind me, in that cosy colonial house we'd scraped together a down payment for 6 years ago, thanks to a generous loan from his mum, 25 place settings sat untouched on the dining table. I'd spent 3 full evenings arranging them just so, the silverware polished to a gleam, the napkins folded into those fancy Christmas tree shapes Evelyn had shown me how to do on my first holiday as a new wife. The turkey, no, 2 turkeys actually, were still rock hard in the fridge, waiting for the oven that was supposed to roar to life at 3 a.m. sharp. My phone had buzzed twice already, the screen lighting up with Ethan's text. "Hey babe, you up yet?" Mum's blowing up my phone about the timing. The ham needs to glaze early. I powered it down without replying, slipped it into my purse and leaned against the railing. The stars above the Atlantic looked sharper here, freer somehow, not smothered by the glow of holiday lights strung across every roof back home. I wasn't just sailing away from a Christmas dinner. I was leaving behind a life that had been wrapping around my throat tighter each year, one passive-aggressive suggestion at a time, one helpful critique disguised as praise. As the ship picked up speed, cutting through the waves with a gentle rock, I closed my eyes and let the breeze tangle my hair. Somewhere in that frozen suburb, Evelyn would pull up at noon expecting her vision of the perfect Yuletide feast, the table groaning under platters of cranberry relish she'd insisted be homemade from scratch, the air thick with the scent of pine from the 10-foot tree I'd wrestled into place 2 days ago. And Ethan? He'd be standing there in the kitchen, staring at the chaos, probably muttering under his breath for the first time to my face what he'd whispered to his mother for years, that I was being selfish. But I wouldn't be there to hear it. I wouldn't be there to smooth it over with a forced smile or an extra batch of cookies. For the first time in 6 years of marriage, I wouldn't be there at all. And God, that thought, it terrified me, sure. But it lit something inside too, like the first real spark of the season. If this is your first time tuning in from wherever you're cozying up this holiday season, maybe sipping eggnog in Texas, or bundled by the fire in New York, drop a comment below. What's your go-to revenge tale for surviving family drama? And hey, if you're craving more of these epic escapes from the madness, hit that subscribe button. Your support keeps these stories flowing, like tinsel on a tree. Now let's rewind a bit, because it all started 4 days before Christmas, with the click of Evelyn's heels on our hardwood floor, sounding sharper than any judge's gavel. 4 days earlier, the sharp click of Evelyn's heels on our kitchen floor pulled me out of the soapy sink like a summons from some unspoken court. It was Monday evening, the kind where the early winter dark presses against the windows, and I'd just finished serving up her version of cosy family dinner, roast beef with Yorkshire puddings, the way she'd insisted I learn it during that first Christmas after Ethan and I said our vows. My hands were pruned and stinging from the hot water, but I'd stopped wearing gloves around her years ago. She'd once eyed them and said they made me look like I was handling the dishes. Not loving them. "Oh, Olivia, dear," she said, her voice that perfect blend of silk and steel, sweeping in with her cashmere coat still draped over one arm, like she was gracing a runway instead of our modest eat-in kitchen. At 62, Evelyn carried herself like the former boutique owner she was, poised, appraising, always one step ahead in the silent game of who set the tone. "We simply must chat about Christmas arrangements. It's going to be our best one yet." I wiped my hands on the towel slung over my shoulder, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace hidden in tinsel. "Of course, Evelyn. What can I do to make it special?" Ethan glanced up from his phone at the breakfast nook, where he was scrolling through sales leads for his latest quarter, 35, and already climbing the ranks at that auto parts distributor, always one eye on the next commission. He caught her gaze, that quick, wordless nod they shared, the one that left me feeling like the kid eavesdropping on grown-up secrets. It had been like that for 6 years now. Me, The preschool teacher who wrangled 24-year-olds with finger paints and snack time tantrums. Somehow always the outsider in my own home. Evelyn set her purse down with a flourish, pulling out a crisp sheet of paper folded just so, like it was a contract she'd negotiated personally. The guest list, darling. I've expanded it a touch this year. Nothing extravagant, mind you. Cousin Lila's bringing her new beau from the book club. Uncle Harlan's flying in with his whole brood from Cleveland, and I've added the Thompsons from the Garden Society. They're simply dying for a proper holiday spread. She smoothed the paper out on the counter, her manicured nails tapping lightly. Expectant. I picked it up, unfolding it slowly, my eyes scanning the names that multiplied like snowflakes in a storm. I counted once. 23. Then again, just to be sure. 25. Including little Nora Harlan, who at 5 was already a picky eater I'd have to coax with extra mashed potatoes. 25? The word slipped out softer than I'd meant, more breath than question. 26, if you count the baby on the way, Evelyn corrected with a light laugh that tinkled like breaking ice in a champagne flute. But little Nora's only half a portion at her age. Growing girl, though, so plan full anyway. I know it's a crowd, but you've become such a wizard at these gatherings, Olivia. Everyone raves about your touches, the way you weave in those fresh cranberries, or how the tree always looks like it stepped out of a magazine. Ethan finally pocketed his phone, leaning back with that easy grin of his. Yeah, Liv, you've got this in the bag. Remember last year? The stuffing was killer. Even Mum said so. His words landed like a pat on the head, well-meaning but absent the weight of what they really asked. Last year had been 15 guests, and I'd started prepping 2 days early, surviving on coffee and sheer stubbornness, darting between the kitchen and the living room, while they all unwound by the fire with spiked cider. I'd eaten my own plate cold, standing up, because someone had to refill the eggnog. When did you invite everyone? I managed, my voice threading thinner, folding the list back up like it might disappear if handled gently enough. Oh, over the last few weeks, Evelyn waved it off, already delving back into her purse for another paper, this one a meticulous menu scripted in her looping cursive, complete with footnotes on brining techniques. Don't fret the details, love. You'll manage beautifully, as always. I've handled the upgrades. The Thompsons expect a certain polish. You see, roast goose alongside the turkey. 5 sides including that truffled Brussels sprouts you nailed last time. 3 desserts with pie crust from scratch because, well, store-bought is just tragic. And the tree. 10 feet this year, darling, with those vintage ornaments from my collection. Fresh garlands everywhere. I glanced at the menu, the words blurring a little as the room tilted. Turkey and goose competing for oven space, 7-layer bars that required 3 hours of cooling alone, handmade eggnog with a dozen fresh eggs I'd have to separate by hand. Evelyn, it's a feast for a banquet hall, for one person. She fluttered her hand, dismissing it like a stray ribbon. Nonsense, you're more than capable. Ethan's right there to pitch in, aren't you, son? He nodded, already half distracted by a notification ping. Absolutely. I'll handle the carving and the toasts, maybe pour the wines. You know how you shine in the kitchen, babe. Carving, toasts, pouring. That was his symphony for a spread that'd demand at least 14 hours of hands-on magic, not counting the tree wrestling or the garland weaving. I swallowed, tasting the dish soap still lingering on my skin. What time should I aim to start? Dinner at noon, like always? Evelyn checked her slim gold watch, the one with the sapphire face that matched her eyes. Precisely noon. The Thompsons like to wrap up early for their evening service. I'd say fire up at 3 a.m. to be safe. 2:45 if you want it impeccable. 3 a.m., I echoed, the words hanging heavy like the first snow of the season. On Christmas morning, after 4 days of prep that'd turn our kitchen into a war zone. She pressed the list into my hand, her smile unwavering. And do make it perfect this year, dear. The goose was a tad dry last time. Bless your heart for trying. Ethan chimed in unprompted. Yeah, the gravy saved it. But let's nail the bird this go-round. The gravy I'd whisked while he watched A Christmas Story rerun for the 3rd time. Feet up, bowl of popcorn balanced on his lap. The gravy everyone else had begged seconds of. Of course, I murmured, the papers crinkling in my grip. I'll make sure it's all perfect. But as I stood there, the counter digging into my hips, something icy settled low in my belly. Not just the sheer impossibility of juggling 25 souls worth of holiday cheer single-handedly. It was the offhand way they doled it out, like my hours, my bones. My quiet unravelling were just festive wrapping paper to be torn through without a second thought. That night, long after Evelyn had air-kissed us goodbye, and Ethan had crashed on the couch mid-scroll, I sat alone at the kitchen island with a calculator and a half-empty mug of chamomile. The numbers didn't lie. The goose needed 4 hours at 3:25, the turkey 3 at overlapping temps, sides simmering on every burner while the oven played Tetris with sheet pans. I'd have to brine overnight, chop till my wrists screamed, and still find time to string lights without electrocuting myself on that ancient ladder. 25 names stared back from the list. A who's who of Ethan's world, his golf buddies, distant aunts who'd critique the plating, the Thompsons with their whispers about standards. But as I traced a finger down the columns, one glaring blank jumped out. My name wasn't there, not as a guest. I was the ghost in the gravy boat, the invisible hand piping the frosting. That's when I spotted it, Lily's name scratched out in Evelyn's precise crosshatch. My cousin-in-law, Lily, who'd been a fixture at our holidays for years, her laugh like bells cutting through the awkward silences. I grabbed my phone, dialing before I could second-guess the hour, 10:47 p.m, late but not unforgivable. "Liv, everything okay? It's kinda quiet over there." Her voice was soft, edged with that post-divorce weariness she'd been carrying like an extra coat. "Just checking. You coming for Christmas? Evelyn's list is epic this year." A pause stretched, thick as fog on a December morning. "Yeah, about that. She called last week. Said with the divorce still fresh, maybe I'd be better off at a smaller thing. Somewhere healing, you know? Suggested I volunteer at the shelter instead. Less pressure. My knuckles whitened around the phone. She uninvited you? Just like that? Not in so many words, but yeah. Guess messy doesn't fit the holly-jolly vibe." Lily had been family for 7 years, through barbecues and birthdays, always with that quiet strength, the one who helped me lug coolers without complaint. But the second her life frayed at the edges, the moment she needed a seat at the table instead of serving from it, Evelyn had erased her like a smudge on fine linen. After we hung up, I sat in the dim glow of the under-cabinet lights, the list blurring through hot, silent tears that I'd bottled up since the napkins folding session. But these weren't just for the mountain of mince pies ahead. They were for the mirror I saw in Lily's story, the warning flare of what waits when you're no longer the flawless fixer, the daughter-in-law who conjures miracles from masa harina and holiday stress. One off-kilter ornament, one late-served side, and I'd be the next name crossed out. Not from the list, but from the life I'd poured myself into. Tuesday dawned grey and brittle, the grocery store at 5:30 a.m, a fluorescent limbo of empty aisles and harried night shifters. My cart groaned under the weight. 2 20-pound birds, sacks of sprouts and potatoes that did need peeling into oblivion, crates of eggs and cream for the custards. The total at checkout made my debit card hesitate in my hand. Ethan would spot it later, probably quip about holiday inflation over his coffee. Mrs. Thompson from next door was behind me in line, her single bag of clementines and a loaf of rye looking downright peaceful. "Big bash this year, Olivia?" she asked, her eyes crinkling with that neighbourly warmth, but widening as she clocked the avalanche in my cart. "Christmas for 25, I said, aiming for casual, like it was just another Tuesday. "Evelyn's pulling out all the stops." She let out a low whistle, shaking her head slow. 25 solo. Honey, that's not hosting. That's herding a small army blindfolded. "Your man's pitching in, I hope." I forced a nod, the lie sour on my tongue. "Oh, sure." The usual. Mrs. Thompson leaned in, her voice dropping like she was sharing contraband wisdom. "Listen, I've seen you girls drown in this season's tide, smiling through the splashes while the rest stand dry on the shore. That's not help, sweetheart. That's a front row seat to someone else's shipwreck." Her words trailed me home like tinsel caught in the wind, echoing as I unloaded the hall and transformed our counters into a battlefield of bowls and boards. By midday, I'd been at it 6 hours straight, brining the birds in oversized stockpots, blanching chestnuts for the stuffing, the air thick with sage and simmering stress. My back was a knot of fire, feet throbbing in the slippers I'd swapped for heels years ago, and lunch, a forgotten apple core by the sink, That's when Ethan wandered in, still in his flannel PJ bottoms, travel mug steaming. "Whoa, babe, you're on fire already." Smells like a department store bakery exploded in here, in the best way. I was wrist-deep in the chestnut mixture, raw sausage crumbling under my nails, the kind of mess that'd take another hour to scrub off. "Hey, could you help stuff the goose? I can't reach the cavity solo without making a total disaster." He checked his watch, that salesman's squint kicking in. "Oh, Liv, I promised the guys a quick 9 at the club, pre-holiday ritual, you know. But I'll swing back before the real crunch. You've got the magic touch anyway. It's like watching a pro. A machine. Something that hummed along without breaks or breakdowns. He was halfway to the door before the words fully landed, his keys jingling like mocking bells. "Like a machine," I whispered to the empty room, the stuffing suddenly tasting like sawdust in my mouth. Machines didn't ache for a hug after 16 loads of laundry. They didn't dream of a Christmas where they sat with their feet up, plate warm in their lap. The afternoon blurred into a haze of chopping and chilling, every surface colonised by half-prepped peril, vats of cranberry relish bubbling low, dough chilling for the pies, garlands wilting on the floor waiting for their twine. Around 4, Evelyn's ringtone chimed. Jingle bells, because of course. "Just circling back on progress, dear. The tree base arrive yet? And how's the menu shaping?" I surveyed the wreckage, hands chapped raw from lemon zest, a blister blooming on my thumb from the peeler, dishes piling like accusations. "It's coming along. The brines are set, fabulous. Oh, and I nearly forgot. The little Harlan girl has a shellfish allergy. Deadly serious. We'll need nut-free. No shellfish-free versions of the shrimp cocktail appetizers and the bisque. Cross-contamination's a nightmare. Now? The day before, after I'd already prepped the shrimp stock with langoustine shells. Which ones exactly? You'll sort it, Olivia. You're a natural at these pivots. See you tomorrow, ta-ta. Click. I stood amid the steam and splatters, chest tight like the strings on a 2-full gift box, a faint crack spidering through the dam I'd built so carefully over 6 years of silent yeses. Not shattering, not yet. Just the first whisper of fracture, the kind that promises flood if ignored. But that evening, when Ethan breezed in reeking of pine needles and post-round beers, all cheer from his escape while I'd simmered in mine, the crack widened just a hair more. "How's the prep marathon, babe? Ready to knock their socks off tomorrow?" I was slumped at the table finally, body a map of aches, a cold slice of bread my only concession to dinner. "Ethan, menu snag, the bisque and shrimp. Shellfish allergy for Nora. I need to remake them from scratch." He shrugged, loosening his tie. "Hey, sub in chicken stock or something. Easy fix, easy? That's 2 full recipes over, ingredients I don't have on top of the rest." My voice cracked, exhaustion bleeding through. "I need real help, Ethan, not just the toast. Cook with me. Sides, desserts, anything." He blinked, caught off guard like I'd asked him to juggle the ornaments. "Liv, you're the chef in this house. Mom raves about your green bean almondine. People expect it from you." Expect it from me? What if they expected it from you for once? The words snapped out, sharper than the paring knife on the board, startling us both. 6 years and I'd never raised my tone like that. Not at him, not at the man who'd promised forever with eyes like summer skies. "Whoa, you're wiped." "Look, I'll tag team tomorrow, Scouts Honor, tonight. That Zoom with the Chicago reps wiped me. Gotta crash early." Another unmentioned hurdle. Another solo sprint for me come dawn. As he headed upstairs, I stared at the ceiling cracks that mirrored my own, the math unspooling in my head like tangled lights. Up at 2:45 a.m, birds in by 3, 10 hours to wrangle sides, sweets, seafood swaps, and a tree that wouldn't topple. 10 hours for 20 that'd break a caterer's crew. And yet, because I always did, smiling through the steam, apologising for the steam, I'd trained them to see my breaking as background noise. I set the alarm anyway, curling under the duvet that smelled faintly of his cologne, sleep a distant shore. But in the quiet, a whisper crept in, unbidden. What if I didn't rise? What if 25 souls faced an empty hearth and had to kindle their own fire for once? The thought was wild, forbidden, like sneaking the last cookie from the tin. Almost laughable, almost possible. Wednesday night, the one right on the knife's edge of Christmas Eve, hit like a freight train wrapped in gingerbread. I'd jolted awake at 2:47 a.m, a full 90 minutes before the alarm, my body betraying me with a dream that felt too real, me, sprinting down an endless hallway lined with twinkling lights, faceless guests barking orders about more holly, while the floor tilted like a sinking ship. The house was still as death, save for Ethan's steady snores drifting from the hall, a rhythm that used to lull me, but now just underscored the silence of my solo vigil. For a long beat, I lay there in the dark, sheets twisted around my legs, staring at the faint glow of the Christmas village on the dresser, the one Evelyn had gifted us last year, all porcelain houses and battery-powered carolers that never quite captured the warmth they promised. What if I just stayed? Let the clock tick past 3 a.m, let the birds thaw on their own in the fridge, let 25 expectations crash into the reality of empty platters and cold ovens. The idea bloomed slow, like yeast in dough, foreign and fizzy after 32 years of showing up, first for the lonely holidays of my own childhood. Dad buried in blueprints at the firm, Mum chasing her latest seminar high, leaving me to string the lights solo at 10. Now for this borrowed family that treated my efforts like seasonal wallpaper. I slipped from the bed quiet as a shadow, padding downstairs in socks that muffled my steps, the banister cool under my palm. In the kitchen's half-light, surrounded by the ghosts of prep, bowls crusted with yesterday's relish, a lone chestnut rolling across the floor like a forgotten marble, I let the unthinkable take shape. Not a grand exit, not some scorched earth scene from a holiday movie, just gone. Out the door, into the car, toward some horizon where the only list was mine. The terror of it twisted with a thrill sharp as pine needles, the kind that pricks but draws you closer. I brewed a cup of coffee, black and bitter, settling at the table with Evelyn's menu like it was a map to buried treasure, or buried alive. 25 names, 25 appetites expecting me to sacrifice my spine, my sleep, my spark to serve up joy on a silver platter while they sprinkled nothing but judgment if the edges crisped wrong. On impulse, I pulled up a travel site on my phone, thumb hovering over the glow of last-minute deals just to peek. The first hit stole my breath. Spontaneous Christmas cruise to the Bahamas, limited cabins, sail 5 a.m. Christmas Day, return New Year's. I'd daydreamed about cruises since college. That one spring break brochure with turquoise waves and 0 schedules, but Ethan always vetoed. Too much floating around. Babe, give me a resort with a golf pro on site. Beaches were tourist traps, he'd say, while I bit back the truth that tourist traps sounded like paradise after piping royal icing till my fingers cramped. But this? Departing at dawn, price steep enough to make my pulse skip. Our joint account, though, the one I'd seeded with every bonus from subbing summer camps, even if his sales checks dwarfed mine. I stared at the booking screen, finger trembling over select cabin. What kind of woman ghosts her in-laws on Christmas? The old voice, the one that folded napkins into submission. But a quieter one rose, steady as a compass. What kind of family expects one woman to orchestrate a miracle for 25, then pats her on the head like a good pet? I thought of Lily, crossed off for daring to grieve aloud. Of Ethan, dismissing my pleas like rain on a picnic plan. Of Evelyn, dropping the allergy bomb like confetti, assuming I'd juggle fire without singeing. Of the girl I'd been before 6 years of yes, dear, sanded her edges smooth, the one who finger-painted murals with her kids at preschool, who laughed loud and dreamed loud, who knew her worth wasn't measured in flawless meringue. Before doubt could reel me back, I tapped book now. Passenger, Olivia Hayes. Not Ethan's wife, not Evelyn's sous chef, just me, 32 and finally solo on a manifest. Card details flew in, confirmation pinging like a gift unwrapped. Cabin 712, deck 5, with a balcony view of endless blue. Sail at 5 a.m, the exact hour the geese were due in the roaster. In 7 hours, I'd be slicing fruit for breakfast in the dining hall. Instead, I'd be slicing through swells, sunrise spilling gold over the stern. The weight of it crashed then, real as the waves I'd soon chase, not guilt, not quite, but a wild anticipation that hollowed my chest and filled it anew. I was doing this, ghosting Christmas, leaving the feast to fend for itself. Part of me braced for the recoil, the urge to cancel and crawl back to the brine buckets. Instead, I moved through the house like mist, packing a duffel with sundresses banished to the back of the closet, too casual, Ethan had deemed them for his crowd, and that linen wrap, whispering promises of salt air. As I folded, memories unspooled, all the Christmases I'd engineered, the pre-dawn bakings, the cold plates scarfed standing, the compliments that flowed to Evelyn for such a lovely home while I melted into the wallpaper. Zipping the bag, I paused at Ethan's nightstand, where his phone hummed at 3:02 a.m, an incoming call, screen lighting the dark. Evelyn's name. Who rings at this hour unless the world's tilting? I edged closer, ear to the receiver's faint tinny echo. Ethan, darling, it's me. Couldn't sleep a wink. Visions of that tree toppling under the weight of the gifts, or the bisque going lumpy again. Her voice, even muffled, dripped that anxious polish, like she was directing a Broadway flop. Mom? It's the middle of the night, what's up? Ethan mumbled, groggy but instantly alert, the salesman in him never fully off duty. I'm fretting the scale, son. 25's ambitious, even for Olivia. What if the shellfish swap overwhelms her? The Thompsons won't abide a mishap. Reputations, you know. My fists balled at my sides, nails biting palms. She wasn't calling to check on me, the one elbow deep in her empire by now. No offer of dawn delivery for extra hands. Just doubt doled out like lump coal. She'll pull it off, Mom, lives a rock, always has been. But if she's stretched too thin, we could trim the list, uninvite a few last minute. Now she admits it's too much, after the invites were sealed with wax stamps. Ethan's sigh crackled through. Nah, let her handle it. She's probably elbow deep already, making it merry. I glanced toward the kitchen, where I should be. Should be wrestling the birds into submission, the marathon unspooling in sweat and steam. Instead, I shouldered the duffel and crept down, leaving Evelyn's list propped like a taunt on the counter. My note was simple, scrawled on the back of a grocery receipt. Ethan, family thing came up. Handle Christmas dinner, groceries in fridge, trees strung. Love live, no sorries. No blueprints for salvage, just facts, cold as the December draft sneaking under the door. Loading the car felt like stepping off a ledge, tyres crunching gravel at 3:45 a.m, streets empty save for a lone plough truck salting the lanes. I'd driven these roads 1,000 times, to school drop-offs and PTA potlucks, but never at this witching hour, never with the pull of palm trees calling. At the port, check-in was a blur of bleary-eyed agents and the tang of diesel, my ticket scanning clean. The woman at the desk, mid-40s with laugh lines earned from seasons at sea, glanced at my solo booking and winked. Ditching the family frenzy for some solo sparkle? Smart play, hon. If I could swap my in-law interrogations for conch fritters, I'd be first in line. Her words almost cracked a laugh from me, the first real one in days. As I boarded, weaving through the hum of early risers clutching coffee and carols, I flicked my phone to airplane mode. No peeks at Ethan's confusion, Evelyn's eventual frenzy. The deck hummed underfoot, alive with promise. And for the first time in 6 years, this was a somewhere I'd chosen without committee, without Evelyn's veto or Ethan's maybe next time. The attendant at my cabin door greeted me with a smile that saw right through, the weary glow of someone mid-escape. Merry Christmas, Ms. Hayes. Balcony's all yours, sunrise special. I stepped inside, the door clicking shut like a full stop, and collapsed onto the crisp duvet, the ship's gentle sway already working its spell. Back home, Ethan would stir soon to an empty bed, a bare kitchen, a note that'd rewrite the day. 25 guests inbound, 0 miracles in sight. Their puzzle, not mine to piece. As the engines thrummed to life just before dawn, I pressed my forehead to the cool glass of the balcony door, watching the harbour lights blur into streaks. My old world was shrinking below the horizon, one wave at a time. Thursday, 7:15 a.m, Ethan's side of the story, and oh, how it flipped the script on that morning's supposed magic. Ethan Hayes stirred to his alarm with the lazy haze of a man who figured holiday miracles happened by osmosis, rolling over expecting the familiar empty pillow and the distant clatter of Olivia's early alchemy in the kitchen. 6 years in, he'd come to count on it like the coffee maker's gurgle, her up before the sun, turning chaos into comfort while he savoured the last dregs of sleep. But the house felt off, too still, like the calm before a nor'easter nobody'd bothered to forecast. No cinnamon wafting up the stairs, no soft hum of the mixer tackling dough for the morning buns. Just the tick of the mantel clock and a chill draught whispering through the vents. He shuffled downstairs in his boxers and a threadbare Santa tee. rubbing sleep from his eyes, picturing Olivia knee-deep in flour. That determined furrow between her brows he'd always teased as her superhero squint. The kitchen hit him first. Empty. Not the orchestrated whirlwind he knew, but a frozen tableau. Counters cluttered with untouched Tupperware of prepped veggies. The fridge humming like it held state secrets instead of supper saviours. No birds in the oven. No pots simmering redemption. On the island, next to Evelyn's menu like a bad punchline, sat a crumpled receipt with his name in Olivia's looping script. He snatched it up, squinting in the weak dawn light filtering through the blinds. Ethan. Family thing came up. Handle Christmas dinner? Groceries in fridge, trees strung. Love, Liv. He read it twice, then a third time, the words refusing to stick like wet snow on glass. Gone? His wife, the one who'd never flaked on a family flick, who'd turned their shoebox apartment into a wonderland on a teacher's budget before they even had this place. Gone. Panic flickered low, dismissed at first as some prank, a too-far joke to spice the stress. He dialed her cell, straight to voicemail, her bubbly greeting a gut punch. Liv! Babe, your note, what the hell? Emergency whose? Call back. People inbound in 5 hours and I need the battle plan. Redial. Voicemail. The quiet gnawed now, real as the empty hook by the door where her coat should hang. He thumbed through contacts, landing on Sophia, Olivia's little sister, the graphic designer in Chicago, who'd always eyed him like he was half the problem. It rang twice before her voice, thick with sleep and sarcasm, cut in. Ethan, it's... What, dawn your time? This better be good. Is Liv with you? She left a note, something about family, bolted town. You know anything? A pause, then a snort that built into something dangerously close to glee. She ghosted Christmas. Oh, Ethan. Good for her. Finally. Good for Soph, 25 people show in hours and she's vanished. This isn't a rom-com. It's a riot waiting. 25? You let your mum balloon it to that and expected Liv to solo the North Pole shift. The woman's a saint, not Santa's elf army. Sophia's tone sharpened, no longer sleepy, protective the way sisters get when the scales tip. She's been drowning in your family's traditions for years, Ethan. You ever ask how deep the water's gotten? He ended the call mid-retort, unease coiling tighter, like the extension cord for the lights he'd promised to untangle last night. Why was everyone framing this like he'd scripted the sinkhole? He yanked open the fridge, the raw geese glaring back like feathered accusations, their giblets bagged and judgmental. Cooking? He'd grilled burgers at block parties, sure, but a bird this size. Looked like a prop from a hunting lodge, not dinner. His phone buzzed. Evelyn, right on cue. Morning, my boy. How's the symphony starting? Olivia got the glaze simmering? Mom, problem, big one. Liv's gone. Note says emergency, out of town. Not picking up. Silence stretched, brittle as spun sugar. Gone on Christmas? That's preposterous. Olivia wouldn't dream of derailing the day. Must be a mix-up. Call her sister again. Ethan thrust the phone at the counter, rereading the note as if it had rewrite itself. No mix-up. His rock, his quiet force who turned finger paint disasters into teachable moments for 20 tots a day, had cracked under... What, the list? The load he'd shrugged off because she loves it, the line he'd fed himself like bad eggnog. His 9 a.m. Zoom with the Midwest reps loomed, the one that could lock his year-end bonus, but 25 forks were sharper sticks now. He scrolled for caterers, fingers flying, Italian joints, delis, even the country club. Laughter on the other end every time. Christmas morning, sir. Booked solid since Halloween. Try potluck Providence. By 8:45, options exhausted, he'd ghosted the Zoom, apology email drafted but unsent. Evelyn arrived at 9 sharp, sleeves rolled under her wool coat, face set like she was storming a boardroom instead of a breakfast nook. She assessed the stasis like a general surveying deserters. This is catastrophe, Ethan. Those geese should have been golden by now. Physics won't forgive tardiness. Can we microwave them or something? Crank the heat? He was already queuing YouTube tutorials, turkey hacks blurring in his panic. Darling, you don't microwave a masterpiece. We adapt. But her hands trembled as she yanked a bird from its brine, water sloshing like tears. They dove in tandem, or as tandem as it got, Evelyn dictating like a drill sergeant. Sage, not poultry seasoning, layer it. Ethan fumbling foil and thermometers, the kitchen devolving into a slapstick siege. The stuffing mix mocked from its bowl, a gritty puzzle neither could pass. The green bean casserole recipe might as well have been hieroglyphs. "Where's the immersion blender? Olivia always—" Evelyn trailed, cabinet doors banging like punctuation. "Olivia handles the gadgets," Ethan muttered, sweat beading despite the draft. By 10:30, one goose was in, timer mocking at 4:30 bake time, hours past grace. Sides a vague notion. The tree loomed in the corner, half-strung, ornaments dangling like accusations. Phones started symphonies of their own, Uncle Harlan confirming ETA, the Thompsons querying wine pairings, Lila texting running late, "Save me a seat." Each ping ratcheted the vice, Ethan's replies thinning to all good. "Come hungry." Word rippled through the family chat like wildfire on dry kindling. "Something's amiss with dinner." Offers trickled in, bringing extra pie just in case from Harlan. Wifey's got rolls if needed from a cousin. The kitchen tipped into farce, Evelyn wrestling twine around the ham while cursing its glaze like a personal foe, Ethan scorching the edge of a pie crust black as coal. "This is mortifying," she hissed at 11, flour dusting her pearls like untimely snow. "The Garden Society's going to dissect us over canapes for months. Cancel," Ethan ventured, voice small amid the sizzle. "Cancel Christmas? At 11 a.m. Do you grasp the optics, son?" But her eyes darted to the door, betrayal flickering. Olivia, the reliable seamstress of their seams, unravelling the whole tapestry. The doorbell chimed at noon sharp, a harbinger in brass. Ethan cracked it to Lila and her beau, arms laden with a poinsettia and puzzled smiles. Smells. Ambitious," she said, sniffing the air's odd cocktail of burnt sugar and desperation. No roast or rum, just raw ambition and regret. More cars crunched the drive, Harlan's clan tumbling out with coolers as afterthoughts, the Thompsons gliding in like royalty to a fete, little Nora clutching a stuffed reindeer with wide, hungry eyes. Olivia's place settings from Sunday gleamed mockingly in the dining room, crystal winking under the chandelier she'd dusted twice. Guests milled, the living room swelling with polite bewilderment, conversation stalling as the promised aromas failed to materialise. "Where's the hostess with the mostest?" Aunt Clara trilled, scanning for Olivia's warm welcome, the one that thawed every awkward thaw. "Step," she had to jet. "Family snag," Ethan ad-libbed, sweat slicking his collar, greeting the influx like a doorman at a wake. Evelyn emerged from the fray, apron askew, hair escaping its chignon like escaped prisoners, her composure frayed to threads. "Everyone," a slight hiccup with the mains. "Patience, please. The Thompsons, your preferences noted." Mr. Thompson checked his Rolex, brow arching. "We were a short service at noon. It's tick-tock now." "Complications?" Evelyn clipped, glancing at Ethan like he'd hidden the hour hand. "Like what, exactly?" Lila pressed, her bow shifting uncomfortably amid the growing murmur. 25 souls, plans pinned to this pillar of plenty, now circling the drain of doubt. "Isabella?" Olivia stepped out sudden, Ethan blurted. "Emergency." The room hushed, processing. The woman who'd mothered their merriment vanished mid-miracle. "Today," Harlan rumbled. "What crisis kicks off at dawn on the Lord's birthday?" No answer. Nora tugged her mum's skirt. "Mummy, tummy's rumbling." "When cookies?" The dam cracked then, chatter erupting. "Pizza? On Christmas? Chinese takeout for allergies? Why no heads up?" Walls closing on Ethan like a too-tight sweater. That's when his phone vibrated, a lifeline or noose. Olivia's name. The hush deepened, all eyes magnets to his screen as he thumbed it open. A photo bloomed, her in that linen dress he'd never seen, perched at a deckside bar with a frothy piña colada, palm fronds framing a grin so unguarded it hurt, hair wind-tossed, eyes alight with a piece he'd forgotten she owned. Caption, "Christmas in Paradise." "Tell Evelyn the goose is your problem now." Ethan's world tilted, the image searing. Not kidnapped, not crisis. Chosen. His anchor, adrift by design, no remorse in that radiant frame. She's on a cruise," he choked, voice threading thin. Evelyn snatched the phone, colour draining. A what on Christmas? What kind of wife? But the room ignited. Gasps, whispers, Harlan's low. "Well, I'll be," Lila's stifled laugh. The Thompsons exchanged looks, Nora's whine piercing. "No dinner?" Ethan stared, the photo mocking his blindness. Olivia, happier than at their last anniversary toast. Free of the forge he'd let forge her. Amid the uproar, Evelyn's phone trilled, an old landline echo from her purse. A number Ethan hadn't heard in years. Aunt Vivian, her estranged sister. "Ev, it's Viv, don't hang up." Harlan mentioned the mess. "Said you sounded wrecked. Remember 82? When you ghosted Mom's feast for that cabin in the Poconos? Packed a bag at 4 a.m, left Dad to the 20 relatives and the lumpy lutefisk." Evelyn froze, the room's din fading to a hum in her ears. "Vivian, not now. No now. You did it because Grandma's traditions were chains. Same ones you wrapped around Olivia, tight as yours were." "I see it, Ev. You're her 30 years on, chasing perfect to outrun the empty. But it don't fill. It just echoes." Evelyn's hand shook, the phone slipping as tears, real raw, carved tracks through her makeup. She sank to a chair, the goose timer beeping ignored triumph. I didn't see. God, the list, the menu. I thought I was helping. Building what we never had." Her voice broke, confession spilling to the stunned circle. "My mother did this to me. 20 courses for 30, no seat at my own table. I swore I'd fix it, make it sparkle for Ethan. But I just passed the torch." Ethan knelt beside her, the photo still glowing on his screen, Olivia's piece a mirror to the fractures they'd ignored. The twist hung heavy. Not villainy, but vicious cycle. Evelyn, the puppeteer, puppeteered herself. Guests shifted, Harlan clearing his throat. "Well, reckon we improvise. Who's got the pies?" Laughter bubbled, tentative, as coolers opened, potluck phoenix from the ashes. But for Evelyn, staring at the note Olivia left, the real feast was reckoning, her own ghosting, long buried, unearthed on Christmas morn. The piña colada's foam clung to the rim of my glass like sea lace as I settled into the open-air lounge on deck, the sun dipping low over the Bahamas, like it was in no rush to end the day. It was 2 p.m. ship time, which put Ohio at 7 p.m, prime carving hour if the world back home had stayed on script. Instead of dodging elbows at a groaning board, I was dodging nothing but the occasional seagull, fork-spearing coconut shrimp that tasted like stolen sweetness, watching dolphins arc through the swells like they were auditioning for joy itself. My phone, off airplane mode for the first time since boarding, lit up like a faulty string of lights. 17 missed calls, a cascade of texts from numbers I'd programmed for politeness. Not this kind of panic. Sophia's came first. A voice note bursting with that big sister fire. "Liv, you absolute legend. I just got off with Ethan, he's spinning like a dreidel. Tell me you're sipping something strong and not second-guessing a damn thing. Proud doesn't cover it." Then Lila. "Heard you sailed the coop. Wish I'd packed my bags when Ev scratched me off. Enjoy the escape hatch. Text pics?" A few aunts chimed in with concern-tinged confusion. "Everything all right, dear?" "Ethan says cruise. Call if you need us." But the undercurrent soured quick. Ethan's cousin Mark, real classy, bailing on Christmas. Family's family, Liv. Aunt Clara. Selfish much. The kids were gutted. No pie waiting. I scrolled with a numb curiosity, like flipping through someone else's holiday card stack, the sting muted by the salt breeze. They were worried now, after 6 seasons of me piping peace into their plates while they pecked at the edges. A laugh bubbled up, sharp and surprising, as I snapped a selfie against the sunset. Me, cheeks flushed from rum and release, the ocean a glittering promise behind. Sent it to the group thread with a simple, "Finding my Mary." "The goose? That's on you all." The phone rang then, Ethan, his name flashing like a warning flare. I let it go twice, heart thudding a traitor's rhythm, before answering on the third, the ship's lounge chatter fading to a hush around me. "Liv? Thank God, where are you? Are you safe?" His voice was gravel rough like he'd chain-smoked the stress, the salesman polish cracked clean through. "I'm fine, Ethan. On the cruise. Bahamas bound." "It's peaceful. A cruise. On Christmas? Babe, you can't just..." 25 people showed expecting the whole shebang and poof. They're grazing on cold cuts and Lila's sad charcuterie. Mum's a wreck. The tree half fell into the ham. I closed my eyes, picturing it. The ornaments clattering like accusations, Evelyn's pearls clutched in defeat. Part of me twisted, guilt, old habit, but the waves lapping the hull steadied me. They expected me to pull off a miracle solo, Ethan. 37 hours over 4 days. That's what I tallied on the flight down. Brining, baking, swapping for allergies dropped like afterthoughts. And you? Your big help was the wine pour. A beat of static, the line humming with his swallow. It's not impossible, you've done it before. We could have figured, nearly killed myself doing it before. There's a difference between capable and crushed. My voice held, warm but edged, like cider spiked just right. I needed you. Real you, elbow deep in the sprouts, not golfing out the guilt. But every arse got the same shrug. You're the best at it. Like that makes it fair. Liv, come on, this is blowing everything up. Mom's calling it selfish. The Thompsons bailed early, muttering about standards. Just come home. We'll talk boundaries or whatever after. Boundaries. The word hung, a gift half wrapped. What kind, Ethan? Like hiring a server so I don't sprint plates? Or you actually learning the oven dials? Laughter cracked through his end, brittle. Then a clatter, like he'd dropped the phone mid-pace. Hold on, Mum's grabbing it. Evelyn's voice sliced in. Not the silk steel I'd braced for, but frayed wool trembling at the seams. Olivia, Evelyn here, We need to talk. Vivian called, my sister, after all these years. She reminded me of 82, when I did exactly this. Left my mother's table at dawn, drove to a cabin alone because the wait. It broke me. 20 courses for 30 guests, no breath between. I swore I'd never let it touch Ethan, but I built the same cage for you. The lists, the menus. I thought I was gifting tradition, but it was chains. I'm so sorry, dear. Truly. The apology landed soft as snow on sun-warmed skin, thawing something I'd iced over long ago. Not absolution full, but a crack in the mirror, her seeing her own ghost in mine. Evelyn. I didn't know. But yeah, it hurt. Feeling like the help in my own home. You were never that. Come back when you're ready. We'll rebuild different. No more solos. A pause, then softer. And I left something on your porch. A real gift this time. Spa voucher, full day. For you. She handed off, Ethan back on, quieter now. Liv, she's changed. Seeing it now, how I let it slide. I was blind, babe. Too busy chasing quotas to clock the cost on you. We talk when I'm home, I said, the ship's horn lowing farewell to the day. Real talk. No scripts. The call dropped as the stars pricked out, and I ordered another round, the lounge emptying to couples swaying under string lights. Forgiveness wasn't a floodgate flung. It was this, conditional, earned, like the slow pour of a fine port. But in that space anger ebbed to ache, then to air, the ocean whispering that some bridges rebuild stronger. 2 days blurred in a balm of blue, yoga on the sun deck at dawn, trivia nights where I laughed without performing, a massage that kneaded out knots I'd carried like luggage. Text trickled supportive, Sophia forwarding Lily's "You're my hero," but the critics lingered, a faint echo. By disembarkation, the high had softened to resolve. The duffel heavier with salt-stiff clothes, but lighter in spirit. Home greeted with December's bite. The driveway dusted white, Ethan's truck idling at the curb like a reluctant sentinel. He climbed out as I wheeled my bag over, looking every day of the chaos. Stubble shadowing his jaw, eyes ringed like he'd chased sleep with coffee chasers. Hey, he said, voice low, pulling me into a hug that lingered, tentative, like testing thin ice. No words at first, just his chin on my hair, the faint scent of pine and regret. How was paradise? He murmured finally, stepping back but keeping a hand on my arm. Like I might vanish again, like breathing after holding it too long. I searched his face. The salesman mask slipped, raw Ethan peeking through, the boy I'd married. Before commissions and complacency. The drive was quiet mostly, his attempts at small talk. Traffic was hell, met with my nods, the space between us thick, but not hostile. No rush to fill it. I'd learned that on the waves. Pulling into the garage, he killed the engine, turning to me under the dome light's glow. Liv... About the call. I get it now, the math, the madness. I should have seen you sinking, thrown the line instead of watching from the dock. I nodded, the words settling like embers banked for morning. And Evelyn? She's processing. The twist hit hard, her own story mirroring ours. Said she'd call a family huddle, but smaller, real. The porch light beckoned, and there it was. A slim envelope tucked in the holly wreath, Evelyn's script elegant as ever, for the woman who deserves her own holiday. Use it well, E. Inside, the spar pass gleamed, no strings but the silk ribbon. A real gift, not garnish. Inside, the house smelled of pine and possibility, tree upright somehow, ornaments rearranged in hasty peace. Ethan hung back as I unpacked, then, I tried a pudding on the cruise feed you sent, Zoom tutorial. Ended up like wallpaper paste. Lesson learned. A grin tugged his lip, self-deprecating, and I laughed, the sound easing the last knot. We talked late that night. Not yelling, but unravelling, me laying out the fractures. Him owning the blind spots, Evelyn's call weaving through like a thread of grace. Forgiveness came conditional, built on promises, shared prep calendars, veto power on lists, date nights sans agendas. Not fixed overnight, but fissured open, light slipping in. 1 year later, I woke to the soft patter of snow against the window panes, no alarm shattering the peace, just the natural pull of 8:30 a.m. on a Christmas morning that felt, for the first time, like it belonged to me as much as anyone. Sunlight filtered through the half-drawn curtains of our bedroom, gilding the quilt in gold. And from downstairs came the murmur of voices and the clink of mugs, Ethan's low laugh mixing with the chatter of a handful of souls who'd become our true circle. No marathon sprint to the stove, no ledger of 25 expectations. Just this, a home humming with shared ease. I stretched, 33 now and feeling every inch unburdened, slipping into jeans and a soft wool sweater, no frills, no facade. The tree in the living room was a modest 7-footer, strung by committee last weekend. Ethan untangling the lights without a single curse, Sophia's kids draping tinsel with giggles that turned it crooked but charming. Downstairs, the kitchen wasn't a command centre but a cosy command post, counters scattered with contributions, not conquests. 10 of us this year. Ethan and me, Sophia with her husband and the 2 little whirlwinds, Uncle Harlan and his wife, downsized from the full Harlan horde, but warmer for it. Lila with a date who actually rolled up sleeves, and the Thompsons, no, not those ones, our neighbours, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, who'd brought their famous rye bread and a quiet gratitude for the invite after years of solo suppers. Ethan looked up from the counter where he was basting the turkey. His turkey. Mind you, a modest 12-pounder he'd brined himself 2 nights back, following a recipe we'd pored over together like it was a love letter. Morning, sunshine. Sleep okay? The kids already commandeered the gingerbread dough. Sophia's on damage control. His smile was easy, unforced. The kind that crinkled his eyes and reached back to the man who'd wooed me with mixtapes and midnight drives, before the weight of always wore those edges dull. I poured coffee from the pot he'd set brewing, black for me, with a splash of cream he'd remembered without prompting, and leaned against him, hip to hip. Like I finally exhaled. How's the bird looking? Golden. No disasters yet. Fingers crossed I don't dry it like last year's trial run. He bumped my shoulder, that teasing glint alive again. A year of small surrenders, him learning the slow simmer of gravy, me claiming evenings for lesson plans without apology. No grand gestures, just the grind of seeing each other, really seeing, through the fog of his quotas and my quiet collapses. The doorbell sang at 9, Lila sweeping in with arms full of a berry tart and a hug that lingered. Liv, this place smells like victory. No offence to Ev's empire, but small feels right. She'd healed some that year. Her divorce, a scar-turned story, and we'd leaned on each other. Coffee dates where we swapped war stories of crossed names and crossed lines. Mr. Thompson followed, his wife pressing a bottle of mulled wine into my hands. For the heart of it all, you. Their eyes held that knowing spark, the one from her checkout line wisdom. Now they were family by choice, not chance. We moved through the morning like a well-worn carol, everyone pitching in, no one pulling double shifts. Sophia's husband manned the potatoes, mashing with the kids perched on stools like tiny sous chefs, flour dusting their noses. Harlan took the cranberry relish off my hands, his big paws gentle with the chopper. Let the old coot earn his keep, your arms deserve a break. Lila and I wove garlands together, laughing over the pricks while Ethan slid the bird in solo. Timer set with a flourish, even the littles got reins. Nora, no, Sophia's girl. But we'd looped in the Harlan's Nora too, arranging ornaments with 0 perfection pressure, the tree tilting Mary under their touch. Evelyn arrived at 11, Not sweeping, but stepping light. A poinsettia in one hand and a tentative smile in the other. She'd kept her distance these months. Space we'd all carved. Her big gatherings at the club now catered affairs she hosted without the haunt. But she'd shown up for the small ones, Lila's birthday barbecue, Harlan's retirement toast, even a quiet coffee with me where she'd unpacked 82 like an old trunk, tears and truths spilling. I was you, Olivia, chained to the stove, starving for a seat. Broke the cycle too late for me, but not for us. Her gift that day? Not a voucher, but a journal. Leather-bound blank pages whispering your traditions now. Room for one more meddler? She asked, hanging her coat with care. We nodded, pulling her into the fray, her hands, once commanding, now folding napkins alongside mine, no trees or toasts assigned. She laughed, genuine, when the kids smeared her with dough. Ah, the real holiday hazard. No full mending, some lines scar deeper, but a bridge, sturdy enough for crossings. By noon we gathered round the table, not the formal beast of years past, but an extension pushed against the window, overlooking the snow-draped yard where cardinals flitted like red ribbons. Plates passed hand to hand, the turkey carved by Ethan with only one minor fumble. The wishbone snapped crooked, but we all pulled anyway. Conversation flowed easy, no silences stuffed with small talk. Harlan on his grandkid's latest mischief, Sophia teasing Ethan's pro-knife skills, Lila sharing her new pottery phase, bowls that held stories, not just sides. We went round then, the old rite refreshed. Gratitudes? Not grand speeches, but heart spills. Sophia's boy piped up first. The cookies that didn't burn. Laughter rippled. Lila, friends who fight for your seat, Mr. Thompson. Gruff but soft. Folks who see the dock and jump in. When my turn came, I looked across the faces, not performers or patrons, but partners, and let it land simple. For learning need isn't a chain, and love doesn't demand I vanish to shine. For this, for us, messy and full. Ethan's hand found mine under the table, squeezing. For the woman who sailed away to show me the shore. And for coming back, so we could build better boats. The table stilled, then warmed with clinks and cheers, Evelyn's eyes glistening across the way. No words, but a nod that said I see you now after, as we cleared together, dishes divvied like deckhands. No one lingering alone in suds. I slipped onto the back porch for a breath of crisp air, the snow swirling lazy. My phone buzzed, not dread but delight. Lila forwarding a pic from her feed, her and a crew of newfound friends at a potluck, tables mismatched, faces matched in mirth. Thanks for the courage, Liv. Best no-man's-land holiday yet, I smiled, pocketing it. Some gifts circled back unasked. Ethan joined me, arms looping round from behind, his chin nestling my shoulder. Any regrets? About the cruise. Or the clean-up. I turned in his hold, snowflakes melting on lashes. The cruise? 0. The year? Hard won, but holy. First time I felt like the guest of honour in my own life. He pressed a kiss to my temple, breath fogging the chill. I booked something. Not Christmas, too soon for repeats, but day after New Year's. Cabin for 2, same ship. Figured it's time I saw paradise through your eyes. The envelope from his pocket crinkled as he handed it over. Tickets peeking like a promise kept. Ethan Hayes, I murmured. Full name like our dating days, when everything hummed possible. You might just be a keeper yet. He chuckled, pulling me closer. Olivia Hayes. I'm spending the rest of mine making sure you never feel like cargo again. Inside, the clean-up wrapped in harmony. Kids stacking chairs, Sophia wiping counters with a wink. This? Actual magic. Harlan and his wife bundled leftovers for the road, Thompson's lingering with wine refills. As the door clicked shut on the last goodbye, Ethan and I sank onto the couch, spent but sated. The fire crackling low, you know, he said, tracing my knuckles. I was scared spitless that day, losing the rhythm we had. But this? It's got beat. It's not losing, I whispered, head on his shoulder. It's levelling the dance floor. The snow fell thicker outside, blanketing the world in hush, but here everything glowed, warm, woven, waiting for whatever came next. I'd learned to choose me without cleaving the cords that counted, love as recognition, not ransom. Holidays as hearth, not hustle. And in that quiet the real revolution whispered, sometimes, The boldest gift is the one you give yourself, unwrapped, unapologetic, utterly yours. So as the embers died to a glow, I lifted my glass, leftover eggnog, spiked just sweet. To boundaries that bend but don't break. To families reforged in the fire of facing truth. And to you, listening in on this little tale, what's the line you'll draw this season? The no that'll carve space for your yes? Drop it in the comments below. We're all sailing the same seas after all. If this hit home, subscribe for more whispers from the waves. Revenge tales that turn tides, holidays reclaimed. Merry everything, friends. You've got this.